Looking back at it now, I don't think it was the best time for me to cast this on. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Oline and I'm a knitter from Norway, and welcome to my knitting podcast. Here I talk about all things knitting, current project, finished project, planned projects, yarn, just anything that comes to mind while I sit here and chat. Thanks for coming to hang out with me while I sit here and talk about what my last week of knitting has been like. And this week I've had a real knitting slump. I just have not been able to bring myself to knit as much as I wanted to, honestly. I've sat in the sofa, I've had free time, but there's just been a mind block where I've just not been able to pick up my knitting to get to knit. And I think part of it has been because I've just been so stressed when it comes to knitting lately. I had that week where I tried to knit 2 baby suits in 1 week. I've had a lot of other projects also stressing me out a lot, so I think all of those things combined and all of that stress surrounding knitting has just put me off from knitting a bit. And I think the main culprit to some of my stress has been what I'm wearing today, and what I'm wearing today is my Melange sweater. I have finally finished my Melange sweater, and the second I finished this, it felt like a weight was being lifted off my shoulders, and I feel like that's a bit silly to have so much like emotions around one sweater. But there's just something about this sweater that has been stressing me out, and I've really noticed it. I think it's been bothering me for a couple of weeks, but this last week especially, it's like been hanging over my head all the time, and I've wanted to knit on other things, but I've not felt like I should allow myself to, because I just needed to get this off my needles. But this is my Melange sweater. It's by Petiteknit. It's finally finished now. I have made mine in size medium, and I knitted with the scraps from my Porcelain Sweater. While I was knitting my Porcelain Sweater, I realized when I was working on the last sleeve, I think, that I was going to be left with quite a lot of drops flora leftovers in both colors, and about the same amount of both colors. So I started thinking about that, what to do with the scraps, because I always like to have a plan for the leftovers after each project. And I tried to like browse my mind what I could do with those yarns, and I remembered that the first thing I ever did with these 2 yarns together was to make my son a Melange sweater. So I started thinking maybe I can make a Melange sweater. And I think I googled it before I was even done with the Porcelain Sweater, tried to figure out like the yarn stats for my size and everything, and I figured out that I would have enough yarn. So kind of immediately after the Porcelain Sweater was done, I wanted to cast this on. If you've seen anything from me before, you might know that I love family matches or mother-son matches. Matches when it comes to knitting is just the best thing in the world. I think I love it so ridiculously much. So I really fell in love with that idea, and I cast this on. And looking back at it now, I don't think it was the best time for me to cast this on, because I had a lot of other plans, and a lot of those plans were more of a priority than this. But because I've done so much structure and color work and everything before I started this, I just looked at this and kind of forgot about all of those other variables and said to myself, okay, it's just a stockinette sweater, it's very basic, it's a bit oversized but not that much. And I said, okay, I think I can do that in three weeks maybe. And I think it's both a weakness and a strength, but I do put myself under a lot of deadlines, especially with my knitting. So did that with this one as well, and the strength with it is that it really motivates me and it makes me knit a bit faster and be more dedicated to what I'm doing. But the big weakness with it is that if I don't reach that deadline, I feel like a failure and I really struggle to motivate myself to knit on the project. And that's exactly what happened with this one, because it never started out as a priority. So I worked on this, and if you think about all the other things I worked on in the meantime, I worked on it quite a lot and it progressed quite quickly, but because my brain still thinks I'm a monogamous knitter that knits on one thing at a time, I ended up disappointed in myself still, because this specific pattern wasn't progressing as fast as I had thought to myself. So at about the 3-week mark, when I had kind of reached the deadline I had set myself, I started to really struggle to pick this sweater up. And it's not because I don't love it, because I love this sweater, I've loved it the whole process, but I've just struggled to motivate myself to actually knit on it. And because I've struggled to knit on it, I have ended up forcing myself to knit on it a lot, which I don't think helped the problem. I think that just made it bigger, because then I felt just forced to work on this, and knitting is a hobby and I don't really want to feel forced to do my hobby. So it just turned into kind of an evil circle, and yeah, I just ended up having a lot of not so great feelings surrounding the project that this sweater was, without that ruining my relationship with the sweater itself, because I do love the sweater, but the whole project I just really didn't like. So I think that has affected my knitting slump quite a lot, because I have been feeling like I've been going into a knitting slump for quite some weeks now, and I think the biggest part of it is the sweater, and that when I knit I've just felt forced for my knitting time to be spent on this sweater. But now it's done and it feels great, and this has definitely shown me that I need to work on how I talk to myself when it comes to knitting, and what kind of pressures I put myself under when it comes to knitting, because it is a hobby, it's not that serious, it isn't even a real deadline, so there's no need to be stressed about it. So that's definitely something I realized that I need to work on. But that being said, we can talk more specifically about this sweater, and here it is. I did finish it. I did just finish it today. I've barely had any time since finishing it, so there are a lot of ends that are just not weaved in. The only ends that are weaved in are the ends on the sleeves and the body, where I've done the Italian bind off, because when I do the Italian bind off I just weave the end in as a part of that Italian bind off. Other than that, all of the ends are not weaved in, and it has of course not been blocked yet, and I think that affects the shape a little bit. It's not quite the positive ease I want it to be, and especially here with the ribbing on the body. The ribbing on the body is so cinched, you can see it bunches a bit, and when I move around it rides up, but none of those problems are really problems, because I'm pretty sure all of the fit issues will go away once this has been blocked. Another issue that I made myself with this, that I also think and hope blocking will fix, is, I don't know if you can see it, but I picked up a few too few stitches around the neck, so there is some bunching around the neck here, but I think once it's blocked and the sleeves have been pulled on a bit and just everything has been pulled on a bit, and the weight of the water just has done its job and relaxed the whole sweater, I also think that's going to relax out, and yeah, I think it's going to turn out very nice. But I'm already in love with this sweater, but it's definitely a homemade sweater. And what I've also realized working with 2 strands of the same thickness yarn, which, because here I worked with Drops Flora double-stranded instead of 1 strand of Drops Flora with 1 strand of Kid Silk, which I do more of, is that I think it's really hard sometimes to get both strands on to pick up both strands of both strands when knitting. So there's definitely some places throughout this sweater where I've only been able to knit through with one of the colors. I've either dropped one of the colors or not gotten them when knitting. So there are some places on this where it's a bit more holy because I've only knit one of the stitches, and I noticed it a lot more when I was knitting, because then I could very clearly see where I had only gotten 1 strand out of the 2, but now that I'm wearing it, it's impossible to tell unless I go over the whole sweater to like point out the places where it happened. And most of the times where it happened, I would go back and fix it if it happened like the last row or something like that. But sometimes I didn't notice it until like 4 centimeters later, and I would just let it go. This is homemade, and only knitting with 1 strand is not going to make this sweater unravel, so it's just going to be a part of what makes this sweater all mine. And I'm pretty sure I did the same with my son's sweater when I made that, so it's just going to make them match more. And speaking of that, immediately when I finished this sweater, I just knew that I had to put us both in our matching sweaters, and luckily my son was on board. I'm so glad that he still loves the things I make for him, and he also loves to be wearing matching sweaters. So once I finished this, I immediately said to him, we have to match. So we did that, and I even got to grab a couple of pictures. I'll put them in. I think they turned out so cute, and after looking at these pictures, I think this match might be my favorite yet. I think I might be a bit colored because this is the last match I've made and it's the freshest in mine, so I think that affects it a bit. And also I think part of why I love this match so much is because now my son really realizes that, okay, we're wearing the same thing, we're matching. He really enjoys it. He thinks it's really fun. The whole time we were taking pictures, he was just chanting matching, matching, matching. So it's just a lot more fun now. It's been fun the whole time since he was a baby, but then I was the only one who cared, and now I can also see very clearly that he cares and that he loves it. And yeah, it's just so great, and I'm so incredibly happy I have a craft where I'm able to make us both clothes and that we both still love it. And I hope he'll love it forever, at least for as long as possible, because I think it's my favorite thing when it comes to knitting, how much he loves everything I make for him and to wear it and to match. And now, since seeing those pictures and seeing how good this match looks, I'm even more tempted to knit my fiancé one of these. I have talked a bit about that when making this, and I've been a bit put off actually because knitting this was such a challenge. It's not a challenging knit, it's just I knit this at the wrong time. I think I have too much other knitting projects going on and too much else already planned to knit a big adult size sweater like impulsively. I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better. I will know better going forward, but now that I've seen the pictures, I think knitting a sweater for my fiancé would be worth it. I think this fit would suit him very much, and I love family matches, and we only have one family match so far, the mother sweaters we all have. and I would love another one, so I'm really tempted to make him one, but I am on the yarn ban, so that will have to wait. But if I'm able to do that next spring, I'd love it. And now, since that's next spring, I can really plan ahead, so I think it would be nice to just have a better experience with the Melange sweater. But speaking of matches, I've finished something else this week too, even though I've been on a bit of a knitting slump. And that is my son's Sunday Socks Junior, and these are not part of a match that's finished. These are the first pair in this match, but once I'm done, I'm going to have a pair of socks for my son and a pair of socks for myself. I love making my son's Sunday socks. Before I started making Sunday socks, I always thought of myself as someone who hated making socks. I love making like the big garments, sweaters, pants, suits, you name it. I really like that, and I thought socks is the thing I least like to make. But once I started making Sunday socks, it's quickly became one of my favorite patterns to make and a go-to pattern for gift knitting, everything. I love making these socks, and actually when I went in Knit and Note today to log that I've finished these, the Knit and Note app told me that this was the 10th time I'd logged knitting these socks in their app, and I've not logged every sock I've made in their app. So and these are only the junior ones as well, so I've made these socks a lot. And I honestly, if you want to knit socks for yourself or a baby or a toddler in your life, I really recommend these socks. And they're knit on 4mm needles, so they go by a lot faster than 2.5-3mm needles, and they're so good. I've made so many for my son. He's had these socks in every size for as long as he's been alive, and I love these. These are in size 26 to 27, and I've knit them in Sandnes Garn Perfect. I got Sandnes Garn Perfect when I was in Sandnes at Sandnes Garn's outlet, and I've been on the lookout for sock yarn for quite some time, because I've never really tried knitting socks with sock yarn before, except for the pair I made for my brother for this Christmas. But I really want to see how socks knit with sock yarn actually wear, instead of just knitting them, gifting them away, and then never really hearing anything more. So I'm really excited to see how socks knit with sock yarn wear, because this is Perfect, as I said, and Perfect is 80% wool, 20% nylon. And when I was knitting with these yesterday, I really realized how big of a difference nylons makes, because once I am like finished knitting something and I'm binding off, casting off, whatever, I usually just break the yarn from the skein, and I was trying to do that with this when I was binding off the toe here, and I was pulling and pulling and pulling as hard as I could, and I had no chance in breaking the yarn, so I actually had to give it to my fiance for him to break it apart, and he said it was really challenging. So now that I really noticed how much of a difference nylon makes, I'm even more excited for both my son and myself to have a pair of Sunday socks. I've never had any problem making my son's Sunday socks using drops lima. That's what I usually do for babies and toddlers, and I've never had a problem with that. They've felted a little bit, but he's never worn through them. Nothing. They've lasted as long as he's needed them to last. But I think it's a good time now to swap to more sock yarn, because he's walking and running and moving around more than ever. So I think it will be a good time to start using sock yarn for him. And for myself, I've also made myself one pair of Sunday socks before, and I love them to bits. I loved wearing them. I wore them, I think, every single day, even though it was summertime when I made them. I love them. They were so comfortable. They were the perfect fit, and I love wool knitted socks, so I love them so much. And I was devastated when I wore a hole through them. I think I wore a hole through them with that in the first 3 months that I had them, I think. And those were also made using droppslima, and ever since I've wanted to make myself another pair, but using sock yarn, and I think it's been 1.5 years now since I wore a hole through those socks, so I'm definitely ready to be making myself another pair. So now that these are done, that's the next thing on the list, because I cast this on this Easter to just have something easy to bring with me, because we were going a lot of different places, and it was just so great to have something small that would fit in just a pocket if I didn't want to bring with me like big project bags and really pack my knitting. I could just stuff my DPNs and a skein of yarn into my jacket pocket and take it everywhere we were going. And I like to take my knitting everywhere. If I get to knit or not, I would much rather bring it and not be able to knit than to not bring it and lose out on knitting time. So I really enjoyed having a project like that, so I think I'll cast on socks for me that will be the same kind of project, because my DPNs won't take any more or less place if it's baby socks or adult socks, so I think I'll still be able to fit it in my jacket pocket. Maybe not when I'm working on like the foot and the toe, because then the adult socks will be quite big, but at least for the like first few days of working on the socks, they will be great to travel with. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. And the reason these are done today, I hadn't really planned on finishing these today. I had planned to keep them like a going somewhere project, and we haven't really been going a lot of places since Easter, so the first sock was kind of stuck like this. I'd finished everything apart from the toe, but yesterday my son got in my project bag while I was making dinner, and I didn't realize, but when I went back to check on him, he had pulled out my DPNs and was very busy trying to try this sock on, and it was honestly quite I had to bargain with him to get the sock back, because he really wanted to wear it. He just loved it already, and he was so sad that he couldn't start wearing it immediately. But I tried to tell him that we have to actually finish knitting it. If you keep wearing it like that, you're going to unravel the whole thing. But when I said that I'd try to finish both of the socks and actually have finished socks for him in the morning, that's when he finally agreed. And my son has the memory of an elephant, so of course I actually had to hold up my promise. So I think I was awake until maybe 3 AM tonight to finish these socks, and I'm trying to be better at actually going to sleep at night, but it was just really nice to feel like I really wanted to knit, because I've been struggling with that this week, that I would much rather do anything else than knitting. I've spent a lot of time cooking and baking this week actually to just get my mind off of knitting. It was just really nice to really want to knit, and I love when my son wants me to knit for him, so I just couldn't say no. So I sat up most of the night knitting on these socks, but it was so worth it when I was able to give it to him. But now I just have to weave in this end so he can actually start using them. I ended up using 59 grams for these socks in the 26 to 27 size, so I have about 4.5 skein left to do socks for myself, so I think that will be enough. It might even be enough to make my son a second pair. But those were the two things I finished this week. So this week has been really focused on knitting matching knits, and I love that. After seeing how cute the pictures of us turned out with this match as well, I'm definitely going to be knitting more matches. I'm even more obsessed than I was before. But moving on to my whips. This whip hasn't really gotten any attention, even though I set out this week to give it attention, and that is my wedding dress. I've not knit anything on it, but what I have done is that I've transferred it onto this stitch holders so I can try it on a lot easier, because the next thing for me now is to knit the straps and actually like make it into a top, and to try it on so I could figure out where to place the straps. I had to take the needle out because it's really hard to try something out on while the needle is in. So I did that, and I got some help from my fiance to measure everything. So I think this is where I'm going to place the straps. I've put in this to kind of mark it and made sure everything is even and symmetrical. So once I actually have time to knit on this, I can just go ahead on it and knit on it, because I had some time this week, but then my fiance didn't have time to help me, so I just didn't have the opportunity to knit on this because I really needed his help before I could do anything. So now I'm ready, and what I have done this week about this is that I've finally figured out what day of the week I want to dedicate to my wedding dress, because I have been thinking for the last few weeks what day of the week I might dedicate this, and I had originally thought like Tuesday or Sunday would be good days to dedicate to the wedding dress, but then someone commented that I should do it on Wednesday because wedding, and I love a good pun, so I just had to do that. So now Wednesday are dedicated to this wedding dress, and this Wednesday was supposed to be that too, but Wednesday just flew by and I didn't even realize, honestly, so this didn't get any attention. I think another reason why I have been in a bit of a knitting slump this week and not done so much on all of my projects is because my son hasn't napped at all this week. What do you call it? In Norway you go between summertime and wintertime, so we went back to summertime last Sunday, which means we moved the clock 1 hour backwards. It all confuses me a lot, but ever since that my son has stopped napping, so the days have been really hectic, and he is struggling a little bit with the change to not nap anymore. He's not tired enough to nap, but because he doesn't nap he's very tired later in the day, so we've struggled a bit with that, and that hasn't helped my knitting time either. But I hope we'll be coping better with that change next week, and now I've done all of the preparations this needs, so I can just pick it up and do a few stitches here and there. Another thing I really want to do is pick up along my cables and do I-cord on both sides. I really want a corset back on this, so I think I'm going to do an I-cord where I can thread something in between to like close the back. And once I've done that and the straps, this is pretty much a done top. So then I just need to pick up for the skirt on this, and to make the skirt that's going on the outside of this dress. And let me see where my swatch is. Another thing I would really like to start on this week is to actually make that skirt that's going on the outside. Here is my swatch for that, what that would look like. That's knit in Drops Kid Silk in this lovely blue and white, and together they turn into such a lovely shade. and I have been dying to cast that on ever since I made this watch. I think this watch looks so cool, but I wanted to start on the top just because I was pretty sure I'd have more problems knitting this top, so I wanted to make sure I had enough time to figure it all out. But now that it seems like this will work out, I really want to get started on this just to see more of a dress shape, because this definitely does not look like a dress. So I just really want to start working on a skirt. This is knit on 8mm needles, and you start by doing an I-cord, because my idea is that I'll have this as my wedding dress, and you know, straps and the actual skirt, and then over this, that's like my main wedding dress, I'll be able to tie this skirt for a little extra oomph. You know, like the tulle you have under your wedding dress that makes it go poof. I want that kind of effect just on the outside of the dress, and I think it might look cool. And if it doesn't look cool, my idea is for this to be me to be able to tie it on and take it off. So if it doesn't look good with the wedding dress, I'll just use it as a skirt outside some other dress. But I think it might be really cool. I just really want to knit the skirt to see if it has enough poof, and if I like the color, if I like the material, if I like the techniques I'm thinking to use, because I think I'm going to use an I-cord for the top so I can tie it on and off, and then pick up an I-cord for the tying on and off, and then pick up stitches. I think pick up 3 stitches in each stitch, so it really gets that poof effect. And I hope that works out, and I hope it doesn't get too heavy and weighed down when I knit it long enough. But I am really eager to find all of that out, so hopefully I'll be able to start this week, because this watch is just so pretty, and I made it months ago and I've just been holding off, and it's been so hard. So now that I feel more in control with this, especially if I actually get to start on the straps, I'd love to start on this. I think I might need 8mm needles though, because the only 8mm needle I have is 40cm, and I can't do a skirt with this many stitches and poof on a 40cm needle. So I'll have to ask my mom, but if she has that, I really hope I'll be able to start, so I can show more of what that would look like next week. So that's the wedding dress. It's been kind of sadly abandoned this week. And then another project I've knit on this week is my Ingrid sweater, and this was my Easter cast on. I knit on it a lot during Easter, and I think maybe the last time I worked on this was also Easter. I think I haven't worked on this since Monday, because I think last we talked I'd done the back, and then I started on the shoulders. I don't know, I think I started on the shoulders last weekend after last podcast, and the shoulders go by quite quickly because it's just double moss stitch and some German short rows. And on the left side, that's very easy to do, just some German short rows, very basic. But on the right side, to do the German short rows on the right side, you have to break the yarn to start from the other side, so it will all look correct in the end. And that was the part about this whole sweater that I looked the least forward to, because I've made this sweater once before for my sister. I think we're getting close to it being exactly a year ago actually that I made that, and I remember from making that once I had to break my yarn to do the German short rows on the shoulder. That kind of took away all of my motivation to work on the sweater, because I hate weaving in ends. I think it might be my least favorite thing to do, period. And knowing that you're breaking the yarn and just creating more ends to weave in hate the feeling, so that just killed my motivation last time I made this Ingrid. But I don't know this time, it just really didn't. I think it might have something to do with that I've learned to do bit splicing since the last time I made an Ingrid, so with every time I'm changing skeins or anything, I don't really get any ends to weave in because I just splice them together. So I already know that I don't have that many ends to weave in. I think that helps with it because I know I'm minimizing my ends to weave in, and I'll still have some, but I'm okay with that. But yeah, after I did that, I started on the crisscross, which has never been my favorite, but I think with this Petiteknit yarn and the stitch definition that it really might be a favorite of mine, because it just looks so good in red and with this yarn, and I'm just in love. This whole sweater is like a dream sweater. It's a dream color. I love the fabric I'm getting with this. There's just, I don't have anything negative to say, and it's so much fun. I haven't knit on this since Monday, but I've really wanted to. Even though I've been in a knitting slump, I've so wanted to work on this one, but I've not allowed myself because this is dangerously addictive. Once you start, you see here you do the moss stitch and that goes by really quickly, and then you do some pearls, and then you do some yarn overs and pearls and this crisscross, and there's just always something new happening. You never have the time to get bored of the step you're doing before you're doing something new, and I just love that. It keeps me entertained, and the most dangerous of all, it just keeps me up at night because I just say to myself, if you do one more round now, you get to try something new. If you do one more round now, you finish this part of the pattern, and all of a sudden I've tricked myself into staying up all night. So I do really recommend knitting this sweater, and I've loved it. I'm also hosting a knit along for this, and I've loved that as well. I love the social part of knitting, helping each other with the pattern, seeing the different colors everyone chooses. I only have great things to say about this project, but it had to go on a break because I had to finish the melange just for a bit of peace of mind. But now that the melange is finished, the Sunday socks are finished, the only other active thing on my needles is my wedding dress, and my wedding dress is a long-term whip. I'm not planning on finishing that anytime soon. Now I only have this on my needles, and I don't need to feel bad if I focus only on this, because when I cast this on and got like, I fell in love with this, I only wanted to work on this. I felt a bit bad for the melange because the melange has been back of the line ever since I cast it on, and just as I finished everything else and this was front of line, I cast this on. But now everything else is finished and I can finally knit on this and not feel bad for any other project and just have the best time. I am about to start on the body because I finished both the front and the back, and what I am a bit unsure of is if I want to just start on the body straight away, because I still have a bit of yarn left to work on the body, if I want to finish this skein before I do the neckline, or if I just want to do the neckline right away now that we're at like a natural stopping point for the body. But I really don't know what kind of neck I want, because the original one in the pattern looks quite cool and I don't have anything like it. But also I know from past experience that I don't love turtlenecks, and I don't wear my sweaters with turtlenecks as much as I should, so that's kind of keeping me away from that and thinking that I maybe should do a folded neckline with just 2x2 ribbing or 1x1. I think the junior version does 1x1 ribbing, and I really want to make, my biggest dream is to have enough of this red left once I'm done with my own. I started with 1 kilo and I've used 3 or 4 skeins now. I don't know if I'll have enough. He's starting to wear so big sizes now that his sweaters also take up a lot of yarn, but fingers crossed that I have enough yarn. But if I have enough yarn for a match, I might want to have a similar neckline on both. I think I'll have to go and look at the children's pattern to see what kind of neck they do. But yeah, I think I might do the body first, just because that will give me a bit of time to figure out what I want to do. And I also don't love to have multiple skeins in the same project. They just tend to tangle up a lot, and I don't want to spend my knitting time untangling yarn. And I just really want to start working on the body. This is such a fun project, and I really recommend doing the Ingrid. If you want to do the Ingrid, do it. It is a great project. And yeah, I just need to finish this as soon as I can, so I can see if I have enough yarn to make my son one as well. But if I don't have enough yarn, I have this color that's also Petiteknit that I could make him a Ingrid sweater with. Though, do these colors go together? I think maybe they do. I really like red and blue, but I don't know if the blue maybe is a bit too dark and this is like really bright. I don't know, but that I could also do. But my main plan this week is to just have really fun knitting on this and to knit on my wedding dress. And I have one more plan that I want to get to if I get far enough on my other projects. But I really want to start knitting the Moby Slipovers for my twin cousin's christening day, because last time I knit for them I just gave myself a week to knit them 2 suits, and that stressed me out so much just thinking about it. It was a bit of an insane thought to start doing that, but I am trying to learn from my mistakes, and their christening day is in 2 months and I'm knitting them Moby Slipover and jackets, and they're twins, so I'm trying to start now so I don't end up starting right before and being super stressed. And last time I was super stressed, that wasn't even a real deadline, that was like a self-imposed deadline. This is a very real deadline, and everything else like this can wait. This cannot. This and the wedding dress is like the thing that's actually a true deadline, so hopefully I'll get to start just a little bit on this at least. I kind of miss knitting on 3mm needles. I haven't done it since I made them their suits, which isn't that long ago, but I am a 3mm girly, so I really want to get back to it. This is Sage Green and this is North Sea in Baby Merino. And I love Baby Merino. I really want to get to this project. I think it will be super cute. These Moby Slipovers are really cute, so I'm excited to do that too. So those 3 projects, and hopefully Sunday socks for myself as well, are my plans for next week. I don't know how much I'll do on any of them, but I just want to knit on those different things, and if I get the time to do that, I'll be really happy. Another thing I'm doing now that and especially I've been doing in the last week since I've not been knitting loads, is that I've been baking and I've been trying to figure out sourdough. I talked a bit about that in my Easter vlog, I think, and I've struggled a bit with the sourdough, but I've also had fun, and especially since I talked about that on my Easter vlog, I've gotten a lot of tips and suggestions on what I should do, and I've tried some of them out. And actually last night my sourdough came to life. It started rising, it doubled in size, it's alive now, and I'm so happy about it. So not only am I going to knit, but I'm also going to try to figure out sourdough and sourdough bread next week. If you have any good recipes for sourdough bread, I'd love to hear that as well. And thank you so much to everyone who gave me tips on how to get my sourdough to come to life. I'm having so much fun getting my creativity out in a different way than just knitting, because I think sometimes it's good and healthy to take a bit of a break from knitting, because at least I can get very wrapped up in knitting and it becomes very all-encompassing. So it's been great to have some breaks and do completely different things. But that's all I had for this week. I hope you enjoyed this podcast of me just rambling on. If you did, please leave a like and a comment, and if you want to see more, please subscribe. Bye!